Welcome to South Coast Matters. My name is Paul Latender. I'm your co-host. And this lady here, her name is?
Julie Taylor.
Julie Taylor.
You got it right the last time. Well, welcome back. We asked Representative Orrell if she could hang around and do another segment with us because we didn't quite finish our conversation. So Paul made a beautiful segue into one of the issues we would like to talk about.
But in case you missed last week's show, Keiko Orrell is from the 12th District?
12th Bristol.
12th Bristol District, serving Berkeley, Lakeville, parts of Middleborough, and a little bit of Taunton, in East Taunton.
3 precincts of Taunton.
3 precincts of Taunton. And we're fortunate to have Keiko here for 2 whole shows. So we started, at the end of the last show, we were talking about SouthCoast Rail. Keiko commutes to Boston 3-4 days a week. And that's got to be at least 3 times 4 is 15, 16 hours a week sitting behind the wheel getting nothing done of unproductive time that we taxpayers are paying.
No, not at all. Not at all, because I commute with my legislative aide who's from Middleborough, and we carpool in, and we are working on problems the whole way in, typically. I mean, she has her list of things that we're covering, and then we sit in traffic and we go through our list. And I know that the folks out there who have dealt with my office have worked with Janine, and she is a wonderful help to me. And so I feel like it's not a total waste of commuting time, but it is a long commute.
And we in this area do spend entirely too much time sitting in traffic.
Right.
Lately. So
a few weeks ago we had a guest, Jean Fox, on, and she told us of the benefits of SouthCoast Rail. I'm a pro-rail guy. I really think one of the greatest gifts we could give our children and their children would be a good communication system. I don't think they're going to have the options of buying SUVs the way we have, my generation has. And when they do buy cars, I don't think they're going to be able to buy long-range cars like we've had, where you can fill a tank up and drive 300, 400 miles. I think there's a different world coming ahead, and I really think that a good, solid, modern rail would last them for another 100, 150 years. Pretty much the way when they built the highway system, the Eisenhower highway system, they had to do it with defense funds because nobody wanted to pay for the highway system. Nobody wants to pay for the rail system, but I think in the 50s nobody could have foreseen how much the highway system means to us now in the country. It's the lifeblood of the country as far as the financial sector. I think going forward, railroad will again play a huge part in moving people, moving products across the country. But that's my take on it. What's your take, Keiko?
Well, and with the winter that we had last winter and the struggles of the MBTA, we definitely have challenges ahead for our rail. And I think that government does have a huge role to play within the infrastructure as far as highways and rail, and even with our water infrastructure and sewer, and those are key government funding issues that absolutely should be prioritized.
Primary responsibilities.
Absolutely. And so, but the issues with SouthCoast Rail, and especially for our viewers in this area, I used to represent New Bedford, and so I know that the folks in New Bedford and Fall River we've been talking about a rail system to Boston for years. And I know that that's an important part of what people are trying to say needs to happen to revitalize the area. My position has been, and I will stick with my position, that we can do SouthCoast Rail, but not in its present form. And the way that I envision SouthCoast Rail is using the existing track that is currently existing right now for freight, adding some commuter trains to the system, upgrading the speed of the rail, and for a fraction of the cost, for the cost of 2 bridges, 165, 170 million, we would be able to see commuter rail to Boston. Now, the folks at SouthCoast Rail within that department would probably say, oh no, we can't possibly do that because they, you know, they did look at some different alternatives. And I maintain that this current phase 1 was not fully vetted and that it can be done. It would use existing rail through and it would provide transportation to Boston. So I would say, given the challenges of the MBTA and given our current fiscal challenges with a $2 billion project, that's what it's currently at, that we should look at that again and try to see if we can make that actually happen. I think it could be done in short order if we were focused on the issue. And you mentioned, you know, the importance of rail, and my heritage is Japanese, and so I was able to travel to Japan last year, and I don't know if you know of the Shinkansen, but it's the bullet train.
Yep.
And they've had that since 1960. 1960, with the Tokyo Olympics, and I think, wow, where are we? We need
My
to
question
be
exactly. Why can Europe have these trains? Why
we need to have. I think it can be done, but it has to be a priority and it has to be dealt in reality. And I think that if we were able to focus on SouthCoast Rail as a realistic type of plan, that would be doable. I'm in opposition to most of the South Coast delegation, and I understand that, but I will continue to say that I think it can be done.
Well, we have primarily...
I think it can be done the other way, but is it either or? I mean, going through Quincy to me is the biggest hang-up on that one, where it would just create a bottleneck where most people would say, I'm just going to drive if I have to make that switch through Quincy.
Well, yeah, I think you also have to look at the ridership, and you have to try to determine if the ridership is going to meet the needs, or it's going to, you know...
We can't look at today's ridership. We have to look at what will develop around the train. Just like the highways. If you looked at the ridership on the highways of 1950, there was no reason to build the interstate system. But...
Right, but I think if you talk to commuters who take the commuter rail in from Lakeville or Bridgewater or our area, I think that they would say that the price of the ticket is high. It's high. I mean, there are conveniences of riding the commuter rail in, but you're bound to a schedule, and it's expensive to ride in on with the commuter pass. So
even figuring in parking once you get into the city.
So
I mean, parking is a difficult problem.
Right, but I think that's, you know, you're trying to think about whether or not it's something that's going to, you know, work for your family within your budget, and
but you're thinking 2015. I think we need to think 2040, 2050. After I'm gone, I'll probably never ride on the train. By the time it gets done, they won't let me on with my walker or a wheelchair or something.
No, I think it will be ADA compliant, and it will be accessible to all.
Okay.
Well, see, so many young people are not interested in driving. My kids,
yeah,
they're not interested, and they don't want to be in a car stuck on a highway driving. They would rather be using public transportation, and so that's why I think Paul is alluding to, that the demographics will be different.
Yeah, obviously we agree to disagree, but is there a happy medium there? I mean, can we get a bullet-like train or a bullet quality train? We're not looking for that speed.
Our priority needs to be to fix the current MBTA system that we currently have before we start talking about expansion, and I think that's where the administration is focused. That's where the legislature is focused, on making sure that we don't have the disastrous situation that we had.
The legislature is focused on fixing Boston, though. That's where all the focus is. And we've been ignored down here. We're kind of like almost in Rhode Island in Boston's eyes. And we are part of the Rhode Island media market. We're more of Providence media market than we are a Boston media market. So,
well, and I think that's where the delegation comes in, and you know, working as a delegation, we try to say, pay attention to the South Coast.
Yes, exactly.
And so folks from New Bedford, you know, Representative Haddad in Taunton, she's the Speaker Pro Tem in the House, Senator Pacheco the Senate
We
Pro
have a great
Tem.
delegation,
Yes,
we
we
really
do.
do.
Well, and I think that if you think about the chairs that exist in the South Coast, I mean, Bill Strauss is the chairman of transportation.
Yeah.
Chairman Cabral is the chairman of bonding, of House bonding, and Chairman Markey. He's he moved to a new committee. I think I'm not sure exactly what his new committee is, but again, there are chairmen who exist in the South Coast who are saying the South Coast is important, and I think that's important for the viewers to know that we do have legislators who are trying to say we need money down here, we need funding, we need our area paid attention to. So
It's important for us to tell the viewers that. So. And that's what we're doing. Good.
So what is the plan to begin to fix the MBTA and expand commuter options funding-wise? Is there any talk about how we're going to pay for all of this?
well, with the disaster of last winter and the long lines of people trying to get on buses and things like that, the whole package is being looked at. And so we're trying to, with the new administration and the changes that have taken place as far as the board, trying to determine what steps can be taken as far as privatization of parts of the rail system. So I'm not sure exactly what those will be. I serve on the Joint Committee for Labor and Workforce as well as Emerging Technologies and Economic Development, so I don't serve on transportation. So I don't know the specifics of the plan to fix the MBTA, but you know, we have people that are
No, but I don't think
anybody
knows the specifics
Oh, and
yet. Because
right, we're waiting for those.
Yeah, I understand that, and I think we have faith. I certainly didn't vote for Charlie Baker, but I have faith in him as a manager, and I know he has great management skills, and I think he can get it done if anyone can.
Well,
What scares me about the whole concept is that the whole idea of we don't have a money problem, we have a spending problem. We don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem. I think we have a revenue problem too.
I agree.
When we can't afford to fix up Bristol Community College in Taunton, we can't even put handicap access in there because we don't have the money for it, or we can't build a decent transportation system. I think we have a revenue problem.
I think that all of those things are being looked at, and we need to make sure that the tax dollars are being spent wisely. And I think that that's where the phrase, you know, we talked about sound bites. I think that that sound bite is talking about using all of our taxpayer dollars wisely. And when you see departments that are failing or flailing, that gives the impression that there's mismanagement of tax dollars. And when you look at different projects that have failed, it's something where we're trying to say we need to spend our taxpayer dollars wisely. So do we need more revenue to do that, or can we solve some of the and fix some of the leaks and some of the issues that we have before coming back to the taxpayers for more? I think that that's where, with the last 2 years ago, we had a debate in the House about transportation, and there was an increase, a $500 million tax increase, and our caucus, our small minority caucus, maintained that we could address the transportation issues without going to going back to the taxpayers. So there are different ways to meet the revenue issues, and that's where I think that we have to, you know, be willing to have the dialogue of not just going back to say, well, we need more money, we need more money. One of the things that I'm working on in, can I keep?
Yeah.
I can keep talking.
Yeah, but I was going to jump in, but go ahead.
No, I was going to say that one of the things that I've been focused on is making sure that we don't have unfunded mandates within our education system. And I see that the decision that's going to be made by the Board of Education on testing in November is potentially an unfunded mandate if they decide to go with PARC over MCAS. And PARC is a computerized test that would be given to our kids to determine whether or not they would be moving forward instead of the current system of the MCAS. So it's a totally computerized model, and each school district would need to have the funding to do that. My community in Middleborough doesn't have the funding. So if they make that decision, now we have to find the money. So that's an unfunded mandate.
Okay. Would the state come up with the difference?
So would the state come up with a difference? Well, we know what that's like to fight for Chapter 70 money. We know that that's maybe potentially an option, but to get the state to give us money for Bristol Community College, to get the state to give us money for the Middleborough Rotary, to get the state to give us money to...
You did get that in there, right?
Well, we did, but I mean, again, it's getting the release of the funds to begin the interim project, and that's where theoretically the money is out there, but that's what the advocacy in my position is as a state representative, is to try to make sure that that money gets flowing to the communities.
I come from the business sector, so I have a different view of the world than you will in the political sector, in that it's much easier in the business world. I understand that. You look at efficiencies, you look at productivity, and you look at where you need to trim things down, and you trim them down, and there's always going to be waste. No matter how good you are, you're going to have waste. It's the nature of the beast. If you don't have some waste, you're cutting things too low. If a restaurant doesn't have some food waste, they don't have enough food. You're not going to have exactly the right amount of food.
But that's one way to build trust between government and the taxpayers. If you take a step back and you review the process, like at DCF, like at the MBTA, and you're making sure that you're making the best use of the tax dollars, and maybe you'll find a little windfall of money that you can put to something else. But I think whenever something's reviewed like that, it helps to build trust, I think.
Right. When you start from the bottom and you say, well, this is why we're doing what we're doing, and you examine whether or not it's effective.
Yeah.
I agree, but I disagree in that just taking the stance that, oh, we'll never need money. Of course we'll need money.
Sure. I mean, that's where our government runs on taxpayer dollars. I understand
exactly. That. I just object to the saying we're wasting the taxpayer's dollar. I just don't like seeing a legislator say we're wasting the taxpayer's dollar.
Well, I don't think we're wasting all the taxpayer dollars, but if you look at you know, some of the recent scandals with the state crime lab, and you look at Annie Ducan and the I don't know, 40,000 cases that were tainted.
How much did the crime lab cost?
Millions of dollars because of a rogue chemist and the mismanagement within that department. There's a problem, and the taxpayers are paying for those mistakes, the mistakes of the mismanagement. And unfortunately, in some of our departments, we can't make up for those mistakes because it's a human life. And you think about the Department of Children and Families, and we can't bring those kids back.
That's right.
And so that's where we have to make sure that we, you know, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing as a government agency, and we have the tools in place. And you know, if that means increasing the personnel or changing job descriptions or making differences in departments, then that's what needs to happen. It's a management issue.
And too often, though, the employees are the ones that have been demonized in a lot of these things, when they just happen to be collateral damage when you have management that can't function and run departments. And it's kind of too bad that they've taken such a rap, some of these employees.
And I know I've met with some of the employees in the SEIU at the Department of Children and Families in Taunton, and they, you know, their caseload is, you know, is sky high because of the changes that were made after the Jeremiah Oliver case, where any child under 5, they're now investigating. They're mandated to investigate, whereas before they did have some discretion as to whether or not they should follow up on a case. Now they have to follow up on every case, and so they are overworked, and they have these challenging cases. We have you know, people who are struggling with heroin and opiate addictions, and those people have children, and those children are finding themselves in this system, and so it's a complex issue. So the workers within the agencies certainly have a big job to do, and so we need to make sure that the management is in place to give them the tools to do that.
I agree, 1000%. I'm frustrated with the whole, what I call the post office syndrome. We have the best post office on the planet, but nobody will ever say anything good about our post office. We have the least
I like the post office.
I love it. We have the least expensive, the most efficient. Those guys work their butts off, but everybody complains about the post office. If they get, somebody else's mail twice a year, that's the biggest event in their life. It's the wrong mail twice a year. It's
well, I'm thrilled to get mail, real mail nowadays, because nowadays everyone communicates with a text or with an email, and so whenever I get, a real card in the real mail, it's always a highlight. So
it's usually a bill.
It's usually a bill.
Yeah, come on, be real.
No, because I pay online.
Okay,
Everything's online.
Right,
there you go.
Right.
Does anybody send you real mail, like letters?
My mother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, mine
okay.
too.
See,
I like
my
your
mother,
mom.
yes, yes.
My mom's 93. And,
Nice.
she's still, she loves to write notes.
Is she watching today?
She lives in Rhode Island, so she
Okay,
won't have
well.
access.
You might tape it and you could show her.
Well, I could tape it and show her.
Speaking of writing letters, Paul, we've seen things in the paper about how we want to save cursive. Should we continue to teach kids cursive? Do they even learn that anymore?
I've been told that is not being taught, so that's where...
That's kind of sad.
Yes. So I was actually a second grade teacher, and so I taught cursive, and I think that there's value in the cursive.
I bet you were a
font.
great second grade teacher.
Oh, I loved it. It
I
was
bet
it
you
was
were
a
great.
lot of fun.
Yeah,
It was a lot of fun, and at that age, they're not jaded and cynical. They love their teacher, and they love to learn, and so it
you
seems
were the
like
most wonderful thing on earth, I'm sure, they thought.
Well, I don't know about that, but we did have fun. We had a lot of fun.
Good.
And as part of Reading is Fundamental month in November, I go into our area schools and get a chance to read and encourage our students to read. I go to all of the different area schools, and it's a fun month to encourage kids to the importance
Yes.
of being a good, strong reader.
But to encourage parents to read to their children,
Right.
starting at a very early age, so they come
Right.
to school prepared to learn.
It opens up worlds if you're able to,
Yep.
to read, and so
Yep.
Yeah.
so that's coming up November.
When you taught cursive, did you teach Palmer method?
The Palmer method.
No. Okay, that was the Catholic school thing around here.
Okay.
Peter did.
I was
Peter,
in a
bet you
public
Peter
school.
McDonald took Palmer method.
Well, because I work at a job where we have to look at deeds from the registry for real estate. And if you look back to the really old deeds, they all
beautiful.
look the same. And it doesn't, you would think the same person was writing all of these deeds. So there must have been one particular method that they, maybe it was the Catholic school method.
Well, and it's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Beautiful.
And it's easy to
cursive.
read.
Right.
Yep.
We used to practice making loops and lines, loops and lines, little ones and big ones.
Kids, I don't know why, they might not have the patience
That's
to
probably
learn
why
that
I'm
stuff
screwed
too.
up now, too. Too many loops. Yeah, could have been it. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do they sign their names if they don't know cursive? How do they just, what would be the new way to sign it? Just a scribble?
With
or
a stylus on
Yeah.
a
Yeah, exactly.
On a
smiley
computer.
face or, yeah.
with an emoji, you know.
Yeah,
just,
yeah, an emoji.
Right. So.
So what's coming up the rest of this year in the house that we should know about?
Well, that's going to be an interesting topic. I think we're going to be taking up public records reform. I know that there's a big push to try to get more transparency in government. I think that's important. Some of the smaller communities are concerned that it might put undue work on their small departments to answer any FOIA requests. But I know that the leadership within the House has reached out to the Mass Municipal Association to try to iron out some of those details. But the newspaper associations and media have really been trying to press to get more access to records, government records, and I think that that's important. So
does that include mass police records too? There have been some scandals recently about Massachusetts police not releasing
So I'm not sure what
Okay.
I don't think
Some
the
Globe
police
articles, I
records.
thought.
I don't think that the public records legislation that's going to be considered has anything to do with the.
With the police records.
That's
Please
probably a
don't.
little more of
I
a
don't think so.
fine line
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
to walk there.
Okay.
Actually,
But
I'm
I
not
think the
sure.
more things that are available at the local level as far as, you know, meeting minutes or documents or reports or things like that online is good.
Right.
Being able to see what your zoning laws are, what some of the regulations at your boards are, those should be things that you
Right.
can just, you know, I know they're a revenue generator for towns when people request those things, but I think the more information you can just go and look that relates to your everyday life. You're going for a building permit, you want to start a home business, there's all these things you need to research,
Right.
and it's much easier if you just go to the website and look it up.
Right, and we talked about the changing nature of society and, you know, whether we're going to be on trains or in cars, and I think that we are going to be online, and I think that within the past 10 years we've seen it, how everything is moving to that, and part of the legislation that I've put forward is making sure that the Code of Massachusetts regulations is online. So currently we have a paper system, and we need to, if you want an update on the building codes or regulations, you have to physically go into Boston to get, you know, the paper, unless you pay for an online premium subscription within the government website. So we need to have that type of access where you have the building, like you said, the building regulations online, and easily, you know, people can, you know, read what they need to be doing to be compliant. And then when the regulations are updated, it's right there. You don't have to go into Boston to physically get the updated copy to your manual.
Do you see a time when there'll be universal Bluetooth access or computer access?
Wow. So
I know some towns are talking about that.
I don't know.
Not in Massachusetts, but
Right. Well, I mean, technology is changing, and I think that that's part of the reason why within the education system we've been talking about the testing and taking a computerized test for assessment. So technology is a big piece of our changing culture, and I certainly think that our schools need to be getting up to speed, our communities need to be getting up to speed with the infrastructure that needs to take place with broadband. But there are communities in the Commonwealth out in Western Mass that still don't have access. And so we have to be aware again of the reality of the situation. So.
Well, that's we have to wrap this up, Paul, because we've
Yeah,
reached
wrap
the
it
end of another quick 30
We've
minutes. I know it goes by so fast, but it's been really great having
Keiko has
you.
to go shopping.
Yes.
So.
I do.
Yes.
It's a busy time. It's really, you know, we're all busy. So,
Good.
but
Thank
it's
you
been
so
great
much.
to be here.
Thank
We've
you.
been honored to have you. We're privileged to have you here, Keiko. So thank you so much. And we hope to get you back.
Very good. Would love to.
And I'll be nice to you next time, okay?
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Julie.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for joining us.